hello, and welcome to Delve, the management podcast from McGill University, where we want to change how you think about management. My name is Eric Dicaire. I am the managing editor here at Delve, and I'm also here with my editor-in-chief, Professor Saku Mantere. How are you?
So I'm your editor-in-chief.
You are our editor-in-chief. Behind the scenes, we have Edie Pearman, who is monitoring the sound, running the cameras, doing a great job. So right now it's August. We are heading into a new academic year, which means Delve is going to be busy publishing a bunch of stuff, and that we're very excited about. So I thought maybe this would be a good time to check in and also just kind of like get to know you a bit more, Saku, and also get a chance to maybe talk about Delve a little bit and sort of explain to our audience sort of kind of how we think about the work that we're doing, and just kind of give them a sense of what we're excited about and what they can expect this year. So in that spirit, I think I'll start off with just like a kind of a broad question for you. I don't know. I'm curious, when you think about Delve, like, what does it mean to you? I'm just like, when you first conceived of the idea, when Delve first came to exist, what was your thinking behind it?
Well, ever since I joined the faculty, which was 12 years ago, I found that sort of we have wonderful academics going on, and I think we're doing pretty well in our teaching. But I always felt that there was kind of a lost opportunity of communicating what we do, more broadly to our alumni, to the world at large. Because there's a lot that we learn about management and organizations that potentially could be very interesting, and it seems that management is one of the things that the world needs at the moment. Well, I don't know. Do we need more management? Do we need better management? But it seems that a lot of the stuff that's happening around has to do with how organizations function, and I felt that we would benefit from a channel that would sort of communicate these ideas outward.
Yeah.
So that was the original idea. Then we thought about whenever we invest in a new activity, the basic question of strategy is that sort of how are we different? Sort of what can we do that others? There are lots of business schools and faculties of management on this earth, and sort of they have different kinds of strengths. And I think we're pretty good at reasoning here. So we are pretty good at sort of asking difficult questions about things that are impactful, and we wanted to create a medium which kind of brought the listener or the viewer along for the ride when we're doing the actual reasoning. So rather than packaging those ideas into digestible bits, I'm not mentioning any names of channels that do that, but sort of there are many management channels that kind of try to simplify and dumb down research. And rather than doing that, our idea has always been to kind of bring the listener along, sort of how are we thinking, sort of, what are the questions that we're facing, how do we approach them? And I feel that that's kind of a deeper way of approaching our task.
Yeah. Yeah, inviting the audience to kind of think along with us. At least that's how I've always understood like what we're doing. And I think the fact that we're housed at a university is quite interesting, and just sort of making that information accessible to the world, I think is very meaningful. Like, instead of this idea of knowledge should exist in an ivory tower, and the discussion is reserved for our students and our faculty. Like no, there are people out there in the world who are making decisions every day, and they could benefit from these, like, exploring these questions and this knowledge. So I think that's something that always really resonated with me about the work that we do here. So I guess, like, thinking about content, like, you and I meet every week, and we're always discussing, like, what kind of stuff do we want to cover in Delve, what kind of papers or subjects or questions. I'm curious what makes a great piece of content for you. Like, what's something that if I come to you with an idea that you're like, yes, that's something we should definitely cover?
Yeah, that's a good question, because it's often, a lot of this stuff is also kind of heavy on how it's executed. So, that the conversations can become really interesting if they're approached the right way. I think oftentimes, we don't. So what we started out with was we tried to focus on translating actual papers, published pieces of research, or maybe books in some instance, and sort of kind of talk about what is it that they deliver. And I think along the way we've learned to kind of move a little bit backward and sort of move into the original motivation of the research in question. So why is it that this colleague finds this fascinating? And sort of this research is published piece of research is an instance of a larger interest and program. And if I can understand, obviously, sort of, there's just things that technically I don't understand, and you've done a great job sort of moving into areas where I really don't have a lot of competence. So it is harder for me to actually sort of dig deep into what the colleague actually found interesting. But I think that's kind of the main beacon for me, is that can I sense that there's some passion here about something that's meaningful, impactful, puzzling, whatever.
And there is a bit of an X factor. Like sometimes when I'm reading a paper, I can't always maybe pinpoint exactly what it is that's speaking to me, but like maybe there's a loose connection to something that's in the news. Maybe there's something that's just resonating with me. Like, oh, I think this is an idea that could maybe have a significant influence on the world. Like, especially on questions about AI or sustainability, like anyone, like if it's a small solution that seems interesting, or even a very big one that seems ambitious and bold. And it's fun to explore those in like a deep and meaningful way, even if we don't really come down on a particular path forward. At least it kind of like, my hope is that by putting it out into the world, that someone could take it and it might inspire something that they could apply to their own work or their own job, and maybe make a difference in their own little corner of the world. And so I don't know, that's kind of the spirit that I've been approaching it with. So I mean, we've been leaning hard into the message, like change how you think about management. That's been sort of the tagline I've been running with lately. And I think for me, that came about because so I joined Dell maybe 2.5 years ago now. And I think being in this job changed how I thought about management. I think I had a very specific view of a manager, of maybe someone in a suit who makes decisions and tells me what to do. But no, I've come to expand that view quite a bit since working here, into like leadership, into decision making, into governance, and sort of like making decisions that impact the world. But when I pitched it to you, like you were on board with the idea of like having that as a sort of a theme for Dell. But I'm curious what it is about that saying, that phrase that maybe speaks to you.
So for me, that's about learning. So it goes back to this idea of delving deeper, that you have this curious attitude towards what they're encountering, and we shouldn't shy away of keeping the outlandishness of some of our research in when we communicate it. That kind of. And I think also that's something that I find when I work with executive students a lot, that I think our challenge is and our job is to challenge the way that people think, not to tell them how to think, but sort of offer perspectives that kind of shake the foundations of their belief systems about what they do, and then that's how you keep learning. So and learning is truly a process. So it's not that we're kind of packaging these snippets of knowledge and then sending them out, and then people either use them or not. But it's more like sort of we're creating tremors on belief systems.
That's interesting. Yeah. So when you think about just bringing it back to our content, like I've been excited to see a bit of a growth in our audience over the past few months, which has been great. And I'm hoping that they get something meaningful out of our stuff. But well, what do you hope that they get from Dell, from the articles that we're writing, from the podcast that we're recording? What do you hope they walk away with?
Well, pretty much the same thing that I walk away with when I consume, academic texts or popular texts or podcasts or audiobooks or whatever it is that I consume, is that I am looking for new information sometimes. But what I'm actually most reassured by is that, hey, there's somebody else who's doing thinking. There are people who are concerned about what I'm concerned about, who can actually who have experience that I don't have, who can open up perspectives that I don't yet have. And that's, I'm hoping that Delve could, and our professors, who are the backbone of what we do. Obviously, we also have our students and we have our alumni who also participate, but sort of mainly it's been our professors who are educators themselves, that they could offer this to our audience. And also in some sense also our professors are our stakeholders, that sort of we're trying to give them a platform to because many of them really are passionate about getting their message out. So this is one way that they can do that.
Yeah, that's true. We do play a bit of a media role too. Like there was a time where if you wanted to get your research publicized, everything was a press release. But Delve is interesting because it's housed here at McGill, so we kind of have a built-in platform where we can communicate impactful research that way. So it's kind of a neat position that we have in sort of like the ecosystem here in Canada and in the places around the world that we have a bit of reach to. So yeah, that's really neat. Thinking about the role that Delve plays in the wider picture, and I think we can kind of connect this to AI too, because like we're seeing just sort of this influx of information going out online that's produced by AI. I'm curious what you think. Where does our work fit in sort of like the broader context of like of the information environment that's out there right now?
Yeah, so it's funny. I just met the chief of staff to chief technology officer of a big corporation, and sort of she was just telling this example of how one of her colleagues sends emails that are clearly written by AI, sort of that and what does that feel like? So I think this sort of uncritical use of AI, sort of this lazy use of AI, lazy prompting. Obviously, we see that with our students as well. That if there's this lazy prompting, that then the outcome is what it is. So it's shallow. It's depressing. I personally think that AI, sort of when it's prompted properly, sort of when there's genuinely a dialogical relationship with an expert and an AI, I think it's going to potentially be transformative, in many different ways. So I'm not an AI Luddite in any sense. However, I do think that the media landscape is undergoing a transformation, and a lot of that transformation isn't necessarily, because when you're looking for productivity gains, without the proper orientation towards quality, I think then it's like taking a symphony orchestra and sort of just cutting down sort of all of the violins except one and from the section, and sort of then saying it's going to be the same thing. So this is an example that Henry Mintzberg used at some point about sort of some management kind of preoccupations. So with AI, so there's a danger that our media are being impoverished. I do sense that there's also this kind of the journalistic profession has kind of really, your profession, you've kind of dug your heels in and sort of started generating new channels, and sort of I think that's kind of exciting as well. But sort of I don't think this is a bad time for a university also to have a channel, because we are all about quality. So that's what our concern is. Sort of my colleagues will sort of just roll me in tar and feathers if we start doing something silly, or if that's lost.
Yeah, and I guess now's probably a good time to just explain, like, all of the articles that we write, like it's either written by me or Edie or any other writer that's contributing to us. So all human made, all edited by people. The extent to which that we use AI is usually in terms of image generation.
No.
Sometimes I'll use it to think or to like brainstorm ideas, but I try to limit that because I do like the process of working through a topic and really trying to understand it. So yeah, so when people are reading Delve or consuming Delve content like the podcasts and stuff, like AI has very little involvement in it. So I hope that increases our value for audience members, because I think there is an appetite for kind of human-made content, and at least that's the vibe I'm getting just from stuff I've been reading and people I've been talking to in my day-to-day life. But yeah, so I hope that that approach, and I hope that people appreciate that. So I don't know, maybe just to wrap things up, I don't know, what are you excited about over the next like few months, over the next academic year? Related to Delve or not, like you're involved in many other academic activities. So I'm curious what you got, what you're excited about.
Well, Delve-wise, at least, sort of, we just finished an interview with Rafael Paere, who's the chief conductor of and the musical director of the symphony orchestra here in Montreal, which was super fun. So it was super fun to hear him. He has such an interesting life story, and also sort of and very kind of passionate, and in many ways a humble and curious attitude towards leadership, which so that's going to be fun. I think we're going to open with that.
Yeah, actually, right after this comes out, we're going to be putting that out. So it's I'm excited for that one too.
So that was nice to do. It was really kind of reinvigorating to, after the summer to start with that. Bunch of things in the research front. So there's a paper that I'm hoping that will be published soon, which is about sort of AI and organizational goal structure. So how is it that organizational goal hierarchies, will be disrupted by AI on the way through things like vibe coding and CEO digital twins and sort of these kind of new technologies. So how does that? All in all, it seems that sort of a lot of the questions that I'm asking they have to do with trying to make thought experiments on what AI could be, sort of from a more social, sort of organizational standpoint rather than the technical standpoint. So how would they impact practice? So that's what I'll be thinking about, at least for the fall season. How about you?
Yeah, it's hard to choose one area, because like from a week to week, so we pre-record a lot of stuff, so give the audience a bit of an insight into our process a little, but just because of the way the scheduling of the academic year works, like if I want to capture certain professors, like I'll usually try to record them in the spring, and then by the time I get around to putting that stuff out, like maybe I haven't spent a ton of time with it, so there's a lot of revisiting stuff and kind of reminding myself of like, oh, what were the questions here, what were the details, and try to like dive into those topics again. But I know we're going to be talking a lot about AI ethics this year, which I'm very curious about. As much as sometimes I am overwhelmed by the amount of thinking and discussion about AI to the detriment of maybe other important subjects, it does deeply fascinate me. So, and I think we had a good conversation with Lindsay Holmgren about AI ethics and just sort of like all the considerations around that. So quite looking forward to putting that out. But yeah, there's also just stuff that surprises me. Like, we're writing about finance and pensions and stuff that I never really thought that I would understand, let alone be interested in. And
it's only because you're so young.
You're not
worried about your pension.
That's true. Yeah. And just finance has always been this very kind of like elusive sort of area for me. So, learning about it has been quite interesting, and the faculty here have been quite patient and generous with me in terms of like helping me understand the sort of ins and outs of it. So I am excited to kind of keep exploring those kinds of things and putting that out into the world. And also I love hearing from our audience members. I take that very seriously. I think this work Delve only works if people are engaging with our stuff and getting something out of it. So I'm hoping that I can hear more from them and just get some questions, and just like ask us like what kind of stuff do they want to hear about, or what did they think about a recent piece, and maybe it gave them a new perspective on something. So that's very meaningful for me too. So I'm hoping that we can maybe form some new relationships this year and have some interesting conversations. So
I'm also keen to hear more about our students, or hear more from our students, because we published that student written essay last year or sort of last season, which I think went down really well.
This was Elia's. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
but yeah, you're right. I think welcoming more voices like that, younger voices like that too, is quite exciting. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that's been something that we've really, really kind of, wondering about is that sort of how do you translate the kind of the original ideas that students might have into content that could also be challenging for our readers.
That's it. I'm very much of the school of thought of I don't discriminate like based on people. I discriminate based on ideas. So good ideas can come from anywhere. So if you're a first year undergraduate student and you want to write something for us that is challenging and interesting, then I want to hear it, So I think you're right. I think that'd be a very exciting avenue to keep exploring.
Another thing that I was thinking when we're just talking a lot about AI now. So it seems that Delve has been around for some time. We started during COVID. So, that was, when the first episodes, Delve actually sort of came about because we had a symposium series at the faculty club next door, which was a way of translating our ideas. And then we actually had a Nobel laureate, Bengt Holmström, who was supposed to give a speech there. And then all of a sudden, sort of the world closed down. And then we thought, well, how do we keep going? So then it was like, well, we had this idea of having a podcast series at that point. So we started then. So the first series of podcasts, also our first magazine, was called The New Normal. Sort of, that was, and there was a lot of stuff about sort of what's going to happen to the inner city. So, are people going to come back to the office anymore? Sort of what's working from home like, and these kinds of things. So that there was this major theme that emerged there. I think then sustainability has always been a pretty big issue, sort of just because that's what our faculty is working on from different angles. I think personal finance, I think that's one thing that has been kind of a thread that's run through. I think now sort of AI clearly has become the talking point for maybe, well, ever since ChatGPT 4 kind of hit the market and everywhere.
Definitely, yeah.
What on earth was this?
I mean, well, it's kind of just challenges everything, right?
Yeah.
It's forcing a lot of people to reconsider sort of like, what is the value of what I do? Like, 'cause I'm a writer.
Yeah.
And then now there's this tool that comes out and then you tell me that it can write as good as a human can. It's like, well, all right, that's a bit of an existential question for someone like me, where I'm like, well, then what am I bringing to the table that
or educators or researchers like
That's
myself, sort of, a lot of us lawyers, doctors, I think, we're all faced with this sort of disruption, which is interesting. I tend to be of the opinion that anti-technology attitudes, just those sort of curbing them, just kind of focusing on regulating and curbing things. You might have that orientation, but often you're not going to go very far with it. So I'm not saying that regulation is not necessary, but we have to understand also that humans have always been. So as long as we can sort of historically remember, at least, and sort of even there's evidence that sort of the whole species is basically symbiotic with different technologies. Invention of fire, it sort of allowed us to grow our brain, and sort of just watch 2001 Space Odyssey, and sort of the coming written language. So what did it do? How did it transform society and people
press,
and work? And absolutely. So then this kind of technology, it's sort of, once they started thinking about sort of they switched their paradigm from this kind of structural hierarchical idea of how you sort of need to build knowledge hierarchies, and then AI needed to replicate that, and then that was very inefficient. They kind of came up with this idea of the learning, machine learning and neural networks and these ideas. So we don't have to have any idea of what kind of a knowledge structure an AI possesses. It's just kind of its response to stimuli.
Yeah.
And then once that happened, sort of nobody expected that to happen that fast. Then we're faced with another transition in the human nature. So technology changes human nature. And change is not always good, but sort of, it's not, I wouldn't go up. I think what I'm most worried about is the kind of the ecological impact of it, because, the emissions that it generates, they kind of seem to be running rampant. So that's maybe the biggest worry that I have at the moment with AI, but then, it can help us solve, magnificent problems, hopefully, as well.
Yeah, I'm in the same camp. I'm not against these kinds of inventions, but for me, it's always just what's being sold to us, and then just trying to be critical about that, and just try to approach it with a sober mind, and to question, and to really, like, realistically examine, like, okay, what can this do for us? Like, what is the impact of this tech going to be? So the environmental impacts is one that's really close to my heart too, because, like, we live in Canada, we have all these beautiful forests, and every summer I feel like forest fires are becoming a bigger and bigger issue. And so it's like I can feel it becoming more and more pressing, especially in the summer months when it's hot. So, like, and that's something that's been a theme throughout, like, just for millennials, like, just our entire generation. We've been learning about just how the climate is changing. And so that's quite important to me. But that doesn't mean that there isn't a place for new technologies. Like, the future can be bright, the future can be exciting, and it's just a matter of figuring out a way to do it, I think, that is more sustainable. And I think Delve is a good platform to explore those kinds of questions, because we do have a lot of people here thinking about those things, and some folks who are quite critical of things like AI, some folks who are maybe have a more middle of the road approach and that kind of thing. So these kinds of conversations are important, and it's fun to be part of it. So okay, I think maybe that's a good place to end. So
sure.
I think if you're still with us, I hope you choose to follow us on YouTube. I hope you follow us on the podcast platforms, subscribe to our newsletter. So we try to publish something every week, always related to a management topic. And we try to make sure that it's always interesting and challenging, and hopefully we'll get you thinking about things a little differently. So if that's something that you're interested in, follow us. And don't be afraid to send us an email if you have any questions or suggestions as to stuff that we could cover. So that's delve@mcgill.ca. Thank you so much for joining us. And thank you, Saku, for this discussion.
Thank you, Eric. This was fun.